Welcome, everyone, to a special episode of The Most Accurate Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Niles. This episode is all about trades, answering listener trade questions, discussing all things fantasy trade related. Joining me is Ryan McDowell from Dynasty League Football and Pat Fitzmaurice from Fantasy Pros. We wanted to make sure we had experts available for both redraft and dynasty questions. So anyone who has questions, we have you covered. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Listeners could find Ryan on Twitter at RyanMC23. Read all his excellent content over at dynastyleaguefootball.com, a website that we've been friends at 4for4 for years and one of my favorite websites out there. Pat, also really appreciate you coming. How you doing today?
Doing great, Brandon. Feels like kind of a momentous week in fantasy football. Really spirited week of bidding on waiver wires, I've noticed. And, trade deadlines creeping up. So people are really gearing up for the playoff push. People are grinding.
I think so. We need receivers. We all need receivers this week. That's the way it's going. Listeners can follow Pat on Twitter at Fitz_FF and read his stuff at fantasypros.com. Pat, I got to be honest with you. This is the first time I've seen you face to face. And after following you on Twitter for so long, I'm a little disappointed you're not Bronn from Game of Thrones. I kind of thought you'd be Bronn.
I know. I have to start walking around with a sword and, chainmail.
Hopefully we'll have some questions. If not, we have plenty of things to talk about, trades in general and strategy of that sort. Default trade lines, just so you know, sleeper week 9 to week 13 commissioner preference. So some may be done there. Yahoo week 11, so we're coming right up on it at the end of the week. ESPN is week 13, got a couple weeks there. We may be back for another episode to do some more trades before then. And CBS also week 11, November 19th. So let's start with a couple strategy questions. I wanted to ask, Pat, what's worse to you? Managers who send bad trades or managers who give you snide responses to the trades you send them?
Well, let's see. Since I am the manager who makes the snide responses to the trades I get sent, if they're terrible enough, I guess it's the managers who send the terrible trades. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't buy it when people say, well, it's just a starting point, conversation starter. You have to be in the right ballpark, at least. You can't just throw out an absurdly lopsided offer and expect the other manager to do all the work to get it to be something, feasible for both teams. I don't know. If you're just frustrated that you don't make as many trades as you would like, the best piece of advice I can offer is that you really need to put yourself in the other manager's shoes and figure out what aspects of the roster that manager feels good about, what might be giving him or her anxiety, and make an honest effort to thinking about how you could realistically help that other manager. And, the most important part, once you've done that and put yourself in their shoes, start constructing trade offers and ask yourself, would I do this if I were the other person? And if the answer is yes, then you're in the right ballpark.
You got to give to get. It's something people forget too easily. They'll send me all their bench running backs, all their bench receivers, and want to get Terry McLaurin from me. And I'll be like, no, I need something that appeals to me out of this. Ryan, how about you? Which one's worse?
Well, it seems like they kind of go hand in hand, right? First comes the bad offer, and which deserves the snide remarks in a lot of cases. But I think I'm with Pat. The bad offers, honestly, in my dynasty leagues, I'm happy to get any offers, right? It's always that excitement when you get that email or that notification that you have a trade offer, and then you open it and see the results and or the actual offer. And in so many cases, it's not one you're excited about at all.
In Dynasty, is it? I feel like in Dynasty, I get more really bad and disappointing offers. Like in Redraft, I get fewer. In Dynasty, I get a ton that are like, I'll give you a 4th round pick and Raheem Mostert for Najee Harris or something, and I'll just be offended.
Yeah, I think that stigma is probably fair, that there's more bad trade offers in Dynasty than Redraft. We look at the managers on the other end, whether if we're rebuilding, we look up top and we try to sell those veterans for crazy prices, and vice versa. If you're contending, you're buying vets for 4th rounders, and It's just not that easy. Like you said, you've got to give something to get something.
How do you introduce trade discussions, Ryan? I was wondering, do you send like a message out first, or do you send a trade offer with like a little note that says, let's talk about it? Or how do you kind of get the conversation started?
Yeah, it's all about the communication for me. I mean, very rarely will I just send that cold offer through the website or through the app without any kind of communication, whether that's reaching out and seeing if there's any interest in a specific player, or maybe this week we've seen multiple starting tight ends go down. We've seen wide receivers suffer these injuries, so it's kind of obvious where some teams might need some help. But yeah, just reaching out with an email, a DM, whatever it might be. I mean, I think that keeping those lines of communication open are always key.
Yeah, absolutely. Pat, do you send a little message offline, or do you add a little comment to your trade? How do you start the conversation?
I mean, generally I play, since we're in this crazy business, we play in a lot of leagues with people we don't really know all that well. So in those leagues, I usually just try to send a fair offer without comments. And but like in home leagues, if it's a friend or someone I really know well, someone whose phone number I have, I'll usually reach out and send them a text like, hey, I'm sending you a trade offer. Sorry about Cooper Kupp. Thought you could use some wide receiver help. Just give them a little bit of a heads up and tell them basically what I had in mind, what I'm looking to maybe do for them.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp just crushing people's dreams, and on a bye week where we're missing Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Christian Kirk. Just brutal. Okay, so Pro Wrestling Shorts has joined us, says that they need wide receiver help. They have Ken Walker, Ramondre Stevenson, Deontay Foreman. Which of the three would you trade, and who are some wide receivers to target in return in a full PPR? I'm assuming redraft sounds like a redraft question. Pat, which one of those running backs would you trade, and is who you can get back a big part of it?
Yeah, I mean, in this case, I guess I would be looking to sell the guy I value the least of that group, Deontay Foreman. I mean, keep that Walker Stevenson 1-2 punch. That is a solid pairing. Man, what would be comparable value at wide receiver to Deontay Foreman? Man, I'm thinking like maybe Amari Cooper. Although I'm a little bit worried about Amari Cooper's outlook this week going into the Buffalo weather. They're predicting some inclement stuff. I think that might be in the ballpark. I'm trying to think of what else might be.
I'm thinking Brandon Ayuk is a target for me with Deontay Foreman. I feel like some people may forget that Brandon Ayuk is pretty good and is coming off a couple really good weeks, and that offense is humming. Is that someone you might target?
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe even DK Metcalf, since he has not had like he's had a solid year, but not a spectacular year. So that might be realistic for, Foreman, who right now, I mean, his value, I think, is at high tide, coming off a 31 carry game. And, just the promise of a workload like that, maybe people will overlook that, it's coming for a team that's not going to have a lot of favorable game scripts. A team that also has Chuba Hubbard and might look to involve him and like maybe Blackshear too. So I think this would be an ideal time to leverage the big game you just saw from Deontay Foreman.
Yeah, especially in a PPR, right? Because Foreman doesn't catch passes. That's something he's not really been a factor there. They've got they even have Spencer Brown out there on passing downs sometimes, which happens quite a bit. I'm curious also with those running backs, I part of it depends, of course, when you look at other teams, like which teams need the running backs and which teams have wide receiver depth. We're probably going to repeat that a lot. I'm wondering if the offer is like an Ayuk for Foreman or an Amari Cooper for a Foreman versus like a Jalen Waddle, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Brown for Ken Walker. Like, do you consider trading the better player because you can get the better receiver in return, or do you just really definitely want to keep a hold of those two backs?
Yeah, I mean, I would maybe consider it. Oh man. kind of a tough one. Like, depends what the rest of your wide receiver core looks like, I guess.
Sure.
It's kind of conditional.
Yeah, it depends on what is an upgrade. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Pro Wrestling Shorts. Ben Gwynn, hi, gents. In redraft non-PPR, should I look to trade away James Conner or believe in the volume? Looking to trade away Conner, DJ Moore, and Sutton for Dalvin Cook. Owners looking for depth, hopefully not depth. Unsure if that's fair or not. That's a lot, but it seems reasonably fair. Pat, what do you think about Connor? It looks like Connor, DJ Moore, and Sutton for Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I mean, he's giving up a lot at wide receiver too. I think maybe I would try to just give away one of those receivers first, see if you can maybe just give him Sutton and hang on to DJ Moore. Yeah, and maybe you might be able to entice that other manager since James Conner is coming off a game in which he saw 96% snap share. But I do have some kind of long-term concerns with Conner. Like, the Cardinals' running game has been really bad this season. I think they are, PFF has them graded in 31st in run blocking, behind everyone except the Chargers. They are averaging their running backs, I think, like 74.5 yards a game rushing. Like, that running game just hasn't clicked. And, even with Connor getting the 20 carries, I don't think he even made it to 70 yards last week. So good time to move him. Maybe see if you can do it with just one of those receivers instead of two. But if it takes two and you really need the upgrade at running back, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Guys that are super touchdown dependent, always a little bit nervous. David Weismer, trade James Conner for DK Metcalf or Jamar Chase if possible. They're a playoff-bound team, likely to get a bye. They have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Jeff Wilson, Tony Pollard, and Elijah Mitchell. Sounds like Conner might be a bit of a lineup problem for you each week, trying to decide what to do. I like either of those. I would go after Chase. Pat, do you think they could get Chase for James Conner? Like that I know he's hurt, but he might be back week 13, I think it said.
Yeah, if the other manager's really desperate for running back help. I mean, maybe like it's tough to sit there with Chase and the reports now this week that he's still on crutches. So maybe that might be a motivated seller. Worth a shot.
Sexfind.biz, find love in your city. I don't recommend acquiring Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love probably doesn't have a whole lot of redraft value at this point. Bill Deno currently has Raheem Mostert, straight drop Mostert and pick up Gus the Bus. What do you think, Ryan? Would you drop Mostert for Gus Edwards coming off an injury?
No, I like what we've seen from Mostert. Looks like that's going to continue to be a shared backfield there in Miami with Mostert and Jeff Wilson. And, honestly, I'm looking at both of those guys as weekly RB2s with some upside. So I like Gus Edwards as well. I mean, we know that Baltimore running game is one that we always want a piece of. And if he's on the waiver wire, definitely tempting. I would try to find a way to get Gus Edwards without dropping Mostert.
Sure. It says Bill's got to cut someone to get a D for the week as well. Yeah, tough decisions right there. Got to see the rest of your roster to know what you should do there. But I'm with Ryan. I like Mostert. Tanner Nelson wants to know Christian Watson or Darius Slayton for the rest of the season. Pat, are you buying Christian Watson's breakout, or would you rather have Darius Slayton's quiet production over the past couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like Darius Slayton has the more bankable role, but I think I would rather have the super fast, big, young wide receiver attached to Aaron Rodgers than the guy who's been kind of a, veteran. I don't want to say journeyman because I think he's always been with the Giants, but Slayton just doesn't have the sort of pedigree that Watson has. So I think Watson gives you more of a dazzling ceiling. I don't know if he hits it right away this year, but the upside is a little sexier there.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. Bill's bench is DJ Moore, Christian Watson, Isaiah Pacheco, Deontay Johnson, and Jerry Jeudy. I'd probably cut Jeudy over the two running backs, to be honest. That's Ryan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it probably does. With that injury to Jeudy, and I mean, he's certainly been a bit of a disappointment this season. DJ Moore has as well, though. Yeah, I think I'd probably go with Jeudy there.
Yeah, keep those running backs. David Weismer, pick a side. Jonathan Taylor, Jacoby Myers versus James Conner, Tony Pollard, and Christian Watson. All that matters to David is the playoffs in this situation. So, Pat, it's one of those consolidation trades. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm on the JT Jacoby Myers side here. I think, I'm kind of optimistic that maybe Jeff Saturday, the former center, can get this underachieving Colts offensive line going. And it seemed like, Saturday shows up and all of a sudden JT has like the big game that all his investors have been waiting for so long. So I think they're going to continue to be run heavy, and maybe JT can get to something approaching the value we thought we were getting when we were drafting him number 1 overall back in August.
If the Colts go on a run here, I need a 30 for 30 on Jeff Saturday's coaching. I need it.
JT Taylor and the Colts get the Chargers in week 16. So I'm taking Taylor and Jacoby Myers there as well.
Yeah, I agree. 3 of us agree on the JT side there. Mr. Scampers, hi. It's been a while since I've seen you, Mr. Scampers. Good to see you. Half PPR with fantasy playoffs in mind. Is it too lateral of a move to give Joe Mixon and Tua to get Alvin Kamara and Lamar Jackson? They're loaded at running back and could also throw in a bench player like Darrell Henderson or Singletary. Pat, which side do you like, Mixon and Tua or Kamara and Lamar?
I like Kamara and Lamar. I think I believe Lamar's got a pretty favorable schedule down the stretch. I don't have it in front of me, but I remember looking at that a couple days ago and seeing that things seem to set up pretty well for him. And I try to get him now. Someone was just mentioning that like the last 3 times Lamar has come off buys, he has rushed no fewer than 16 times in any of those games and has put up some like ridiculous rushing numbers coming out of the bye for some reason. So get him ASAP.
Excellent. Ryan, the Joe Mixon for Kamara side, is that worth it to you? I'm just curious, want your take on that.
Yeah, I think, he mentioned kind of a lateral move, and that's really how I see it on the running back side. I don't know that you're getting much of an upgrade, if any, but I'm with Pat on the Lamar piece. So that's the side I would take there. And as far as the Ravens schedule, checking that out, Falcons in week 17, Falcons in 16, Steelers in 17. So pretty nice playoff schedule for Lamar.
Looking solid. All right, Thomas Asher asks, trade away Michael Pittman, Jeff Wilson, Isaiah Pacheco, and get CD Lamb. They have A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, Marquise Brown, and Kadarius Toney, so a talented but injured group. And they have Saquon Barkley and Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Pierce. So it looks like they're set at running back. What do you think, Pat? That's another consolidation trade, but this time they're getting the talent.
It is. And simple answer, yes, that makes a lot of sense with his roster. Go for it. That makes perfect sense. Really solidify the wide receivers to go with that just dazzling backfield he's got. That is a nice 3-headed backfield.
I love it. I agree. Cuddy Forever, Dynasty 10-team Superflex contender, sending Cooper Kupp, getting Mike Evans in a late second, or will they regret it too much next year? What do you think, Ryan? This is definitely an all-in, screw the future move.
Yeah, and the answer is probably yes to both. Yes, you do the deal if you're a contender, and yes, you'll regret it in a year. But if you're a contender and you can get that title, if you think Evans helps get you there, then I would do it. Obviously, you're shopping around for the best receiver you can get. In my leagues just this week, I've seen Kupp even up for Debo, Kupp for Hollywood Brown, and a couple of other pieces. So that's kind of the range, and that's about where Evans is as well.
Excellent. And it's nice you get in the second rounder too. At least that helps mitigate a little bit of that in that situation. Another dynasty question from Fun Guy 2000. Superflex, half PPR. They have Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, and Mac Jones. They need a receiver. Was offered Amon-Ra St. Brown for Trevor Lawrence. Is that fair? And can they trust Mac Jones for the rest of the season?
No, I don't think you can trust Mac Jones at all. We just haven't seen any fantasy upside from him. He has 0 top 12 fantasy games this season. Bailey Zappi actually has the only one for New England at the quarterback position. I love St. Brown, but you need more for Lawrence.
Yeah, I agree. Trevor Lawrence, jury's still out on Trevor Lawrence, but the upside is still too high in a super flex league. I agree with that. Jeff H, half PPR, 2 flex spots in a redraft league. Current tight end is Kyle Pitts, looking for an upgrade. Was thinking about offering Antonio Gibson, who's their RB4, for Dalton Schultz, because the other manager has Andrews. Pat, is Gibson for Schultz giving up too much?
I would say it's reasonable. Like in a vacuum, maybe Gibson is a little more valuable in redraft. But given the circumstances, like, I mean, I hate to diss Pitts. I'm still hoping that maybe the second half, the Falcons choose to play a little differently, and we see Pitts approaching something, some of the value he had in 2021. But, you know, realistically, is that going to happen with Arthur Smith at the controls? Probably not. So, you know, like if Gibson is his 4th running back, yeah, like I could sign off on that one. Makes sense.
Sure. I keep hoping for Desmond Ridder. I know they say it's not going to happen, but I keep hoping Desmond Ridder will help out. Trey wants to know if they should drop Isaiah Pacheco for Samaje Perine, if they have Mixon to get the backup, or gamble and keep Pacheco for depth. This is a good question for both of you, and I'll get to you in a second, Ryan. But, you know, back up your starter or take the upside guy in Pacheco, Pat?
Absolutely take the upside guy with Pacheco. Like even with Andy Reid coming out today and saying it's still a committee and it was just game circumstances that caused Clyde Edwards-Helaire to only get 4 carries or 4 snaps last week. Like, I don't know. It feels like there's a paradigm shift going on in the Kansas City backfield. And I don't want to give up Pacheco after what we saw last week.
I know he's the only one that when I watch him run, I'm like, oh, he can run. Like he's the only one I'm impressed when I watch. Ryan, do you back up your starter? I know it's something that fantasy analysts debate about every year, and I'm just curious where you fall on it.
Well, I think it's a little easier to do in Dynasty. You know, you're thinking more long term, and I mean, a lot of times these guys are on Dynasty waiver wires just like they're on redraft waiver wires, but yeah, in this specific case, I'm definitely taking Pacheco as well. I mean, thinking about Samaje Perine, I think if Mixon were to get hurt, we would see a committee there. We've seen Chris Evans get plenty of playing time as well. I know he got banged up last week. I don't think that's or the previous week. I don't think that's a long-term injury. So if Mixon were to get hurt, we're probably seeing Perine and Chris Evans sharing that backfield.
It makes sense. Pat, another Christian Watson question here, which makes sense after the week he had. Would you rather have Watson or Tyler Lockett for the rest of the season?
Oh, still Lockett.
Yeah.
Still Lockett. Yeah, I'm just I'm excited about Watson, but I think there's like a wide range of outcomes for him the rest of the way. And at some point, Romeo Doubs comes back. Maybe that complicates things. Like, I'm really excited about Watson, but I mean, he is the mystery box right now. You do not know what is behind the curtain for him the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm not a Seahawks fan, but I'm secretly like a huge Tyler Lockett fan. I just love watching him play.
So underrated every year. Yeah. Underrated, undervalued.
Every year he makes a catch, at least one catch throughout the year that makes my jaw literally drop. It's just amazing to me. RJ, 12-team PPR. They have Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, Jeff Wilson, and Brian Robinson, so they're in good shape at running back. They want to pair Jeff Wilson or Robinson with a wide receiver and go after a top receiver. The receivers they have to offer are Mike Williams, Kadarius Toney, Darnell Mooney, and Treylon Burks. Any advice? I would start with, the other team, of course, but Pat, immediately looking at that, Wilson, Robinson, and one of those receivers, I guess, which receiver would you try to use to trade? And is there someone you might target?
Sorry, I'm looking for this question. Could you give me those receivers again, Brandon?
Sure. They have Mike Williams, Kadarius Toney, Darnell Mooney, and Treylon Burks. Like, my gut is like Toney might have the most trade value, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he might be the best, like sort of the unstable asset. Like he is like a flash player right now. Everyone's kind of excited about him. Everyone's talking about him. Like now that he's on the Chiefs, now that he made some plays last week. But like, is he a guy you can count on in your starting line? It's possible. Like you might be selling low I mean, like we've got this guy with this, he injured every part of his body last year. Like he had 8 different injuries. I think as far as just a guy you can't count on, but who probably has a lot of value for someone else, he would be a good guy to try to package. And he was trying to pair him with Jeff Wilson.
Jeff Wilson and Brian
Wilson.
Robinson.
All right, so I'm just taking a quick look at our trade value chart, and I'll try not to slow things along too much. So looking at that, pairing Tony with Brian Robinson, for instance, would that's like a value of about 30 on our trade value chart, which amounts to a receiver like T. Higgins, Mike Evans.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so
I was going to say back to Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, even Lockett is not far off either. So, or Metcalf for that matter. So,
and Lockett Evans
are
often
targets.
Yeah, Lockett and Evans often players on the low on the perceived value chart. Usually, Lockett and Evans both. Okay, so hopefully that helps you a little bit. RJ Kelsey Fisher wants to know in a full PPR if they should trade James Conner and Cortland Sutton for Travis Etienne. Is that fair? What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, I would love to be able to do that and get Etienne.
Yeah, I'm with you. I no qualms with that at all. John Lady has good running back depth with Joe Mixon, Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Pearson, Jeff Wilson. Major need of a quarterback. Should they trade one of those running backs for Justin Fields? Looking for something that's very fair because it's a veto-heavy league. Ryan, I want to get your take real quick because there's a lot of young assets there. I know you've been tracking Stevenson. You've been tracking Pierce a lot. I'm just curious, would you give up one of these guys in a redraft for Justin Fields?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I with that running back depth. Sorry, I lost the question this time.
Sure.
But I mean, Field, the run that Fields is on, and there's been lots of talk about the schedule getting tough, but we've already seen him produce against teams that have typically stopped quarterback production this year, Dallas, New England included. So yeah, get Justin Fields on your team, and to give up one of those running backs, I would be okay with that.
Yeah, Pat, which running back do you think would be fair for Fields between Mixon, Stevenson, and Damian Pierce? I'm assuming Jeff Wilson isn't.
So I mean, on our trade value chart, I'm not sure I totally agree with this, but we have like in single QB leagues, Wilson right now as being like having a higher value than Fields. I'm not sure if that's right or if that is something that would get vetoed, perhaps. But I do think any of the other guys are maybe a little too much to give up for Fields in a one quarterback league. But I don't know. I mean, it's different philosophies, and this has been a different year where like the quarterback production has been much more top heavy than we're used to. Like that middle class of quarterbacks that you can live with just kind of doesn't exist this year for some reason. And so like if you don't have one of those top producers, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could see paying a premium, but man, like it would be hard to give up Mixon or what was it? Mixon Pierce, or the other one was
Stevenson.
Yeah. It still feels like any of those three would be too much. And I'd maybe at least try to get some small piece in return if you were forced to give up one of those three to try to get Fields.
Yeah, he doesn't mention his quarterback. Maybe you pair Wilson with whoever you have at quarterback. Maybe try that first for Fields.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Okay, let's see. Mind of Igor or Igor, depending on if you're a young Frankenstein fan. As long as Andy Dalton starts, Kamara will be good. So Mind of Igor is pretty confident and bullish on Alvin Kamara. Jamie, PPR having lottery ticket, running back, fear of missing out. They have Rashad White and Jalen Warren. Do they drop one for Isaiah Pacheco or stay strong? What do you think, Pat? Is that kind of a good swap for one of those for Pacheco, or do you think it's nothing?
I guess for me, the order would probably be White, Pacheco, and Warren. Like I like Warren. He's interesting, but we saw last week that maybe any talk of him usurping Najee Harris might have been a little premature as Najee had like a 20+ carry day. Like it's nice that Najee is not really, if you're a Warren investor, I mean, Warren is kind of their third down back now. Like they're not having Harris be the everything guy for them anymore. So there's a little bit of a floor there with Warren, but I don't know if we're going to see that ceiling barring a Najee injury.
Connor Allen, hi Connor, thank you for joining us. Is joking, but I think this is a real question I want to ask Ryan about Kyle Pitts. Wants to know Kyle Pitts or $10 of fab, which is wonderful.
It hurts. It hurts so bad.
I want to ask you, Ryan. So Desmond Ridder, we all know Arthur Smith doesn't want to go to Desmond Ridder and hasn't indicated anything of that sort. If Desmond Ridder, I know as a dynasty guy, you've got to be tracking him since he was a third round pick and good at Cincinnati. If he did take over, would you think the offense would be similar and we'd still be pretty down on all the pass catching options in Atlanta, or would you be kind of bullish and want to buy Pitts in that instance?
Well, I want to buy Pitts in dynasty regardless, because I mean the price is down, not a ton, maybe not as much as redraft players would expect, but the price is certainly down since the offseason, and the expectation and honestly the hype is still there. It's as high as ever. We're looking for that new quarterback, whether it's Desmond Ridder or someone else in the upcoming seasons. So I don't know, honestly, if Desmond Ridder's the answer there. I would think at some point we would find out this year. They need to figure it out before draft day comes. But the Arthur Smith and the Falcons seem to be doing the total opposite of what fantasy players want them to do this year.
Makes sense. Musa asks in a half PPR, they have Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, and Nick Chubb. Congratulations, Musa.
Nice.
Doing okay with 7 wins, but a playoff schedule for Jacobs and Chubb scares them. Should they sell high for ETN, Derrick Henry, or Kenneth Walker? I mean, all those running backs are really good. Pat, would you make a move or would you just sit tight?
Oh man. Yeah, those challenge trades with guys from the same position being exchanged, like those are kind of hard to pull off. Oh man, like I would maybe be willing to. I don't feel great about the direction of the Las Vegas Raiders right now. So I could understand trying to flip Jacobs for one of those guys, but you'd have to hope the other manager was a little more confident in the Raiders than I am.
Maybe dangle it out there, see what you get. That would make sense to me. Dr. Squatch, 12-team half PPR contender. Thoughts on sending Alvin Kamara, Christian Watson, and Kirk Cousins for Christian McCaffrey? They have Dak, Kenneth Walker, and Nick Chubb. So Kamara, Christian Watson, and Cousins for Christian McCaffrey. My first question is this a super flex? But outside of that, Pat, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, assuming it's a 1 QB league and Cousins is somewhat expendable for him and he's got one of the top 8 or so quarterbacks, yes, I like it. I mean, I am not really too phased by the heavy usage that Elijah Mitchell got last week. Like, I still love having CMC in this really good offense. Like, I'm still very excited about that and his value going forward. So I think he's going to get his points, and I have no doubt he's going to be more valuable than Kamara the rest of the way.
Yeah, it makes sense. Ben is in a non-PPR, lost Dallas Goedert. I'm sorry, Ben, I'm in the same boat in a couple leagues. Should they trade for George Kittle or a middle tight end one, or just stream from the slim waivers out there? Looks like Robert Tonyan, Trey McBride, Juwan Johnson, Austin Hooper, Tyler Conklin are all available. I really like Tyler Conklin. Pat, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Conklin might have some value. It's basically a 2-man target tree there now with Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin. So he would be the fallback plan. Yeah, I'm not sure what Kittle. I worry that the price for Kittle right now in a trade might be more than he's actually worth. Like with the dynamics now that Debo and Ayuk are both totally healthy, now that they've added Christian McCaffrey. Like, I wonder if the same sort of role is there for Kittle in the passing game. And like we've seen, it's kind of a roller coaster ride with Kittle. Like even when he's running well, like he'll throw out the clunker game. So maybe rather than paying a steep price, I mean, it might make more sense to stream just because, if you're going to have some of those down games, why give up something to get that sort of inconsistency when you can just claim a guy off waivers?
Sure. Ryan, I wanted to ask you about Trey McBride, right? Top tight end drafted this year in the NFL draft, been buried on that depth chart, hasn't done anything yet. But Zach Ertz, as we know, is out for the season. Is this a buy window for Trey McBride before he plays? Or how are you approaching him right now in Dynasty?
Yeah, I think you've probably already missed your buy window if you wanted a real discount, because I mean, this is easy to see that this is going to be McBride's job. Ertz got hurt early in that game, and I think McBride played 90+% of the snaps following that injury. So we'll see if the usage comes as far as targets and opportunities for receptions, but yeah, the real buy low opportunity for McBride is probably already gone. You can still buy him for a second, which is kind of where he was going in rookie drafts anyway. But I don't know if I would. I probably wouldn't do that. I'd keep the pick at that point.
Sure. Makes sense. Brian LaForte needs a running back in a 3 wide receiver league. Would we trade Christian Kirk plus something? Well, I'm sorry, wants to trade Christian Kirk plus something to try to get a high end back. But if they can't, would you trade AJ Brown for that high end back? Looking at Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, or Dalvin Cook in a PPR. They have Najee Harris, David Montgomery, Devontae Adams, and Darnell Mooney. So obviously, if you can do Kirk and something for one of those 3 backs, I'm definitely on board for that. I like Christian Kirk, but that's a no-brainer. Pat, would you trade AJ Brown for one of those backs?
I personally would. I value all of those running backs a little more than AJ Brown. Like, we've kind of seen some inconsistency with AJ Brown. Like, the boom games have been spectacular, but they also have Devonta Smith. Maybe the production levels out a bit now that there's no Dallas Goedert, and some of those targets go AJ Brown's way. But I still think in a vacuum, all those running backs are slightly more valuable. So, if the other person is really wide receiver needy, worth a shot. I don't know if just AJ Brown for one of those guys gets it done, though, to be totally honest.
Yeah, you may be right. Pinbin25 wants to know Damian Harris or Isaiah Pacheco, PPR.
Oh, Pacheco for me, for sure.
Yeah, me too. Harris seems to have fallen pretty far on that depth chart, unfortunately, for him. Although he's a free agent. So in Dynasty, is he a target for you, Ryan? Damian Harris, since he's a free agent? Meh.
Not really. I think he kind of is what he is. I mean, he'll get a job. He'll be part of a committee. But as far as, real long-term fantasy upside, not really a target.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Nordek wants to know Foreman, Jalen Waddle, and George Kittle were offered for Derrick Henry, Devin Duvernay, and TJ Hawkinson in a standard non-PPR league. Let's see here. The team giving up Foreman, Waddle, and Kittle is 5-5, and the other one is 8-2 in a 10 team. So Foreman, Waddle, Kittle for Derrick Henry, Duvernay, and TJ Hawkinson. Pat, what do you think?
So I actually think Hawkinson has more value than Kittle the rest of the way, way they've used him so far. And it kind of feels to me like the gap between Henry and Foreman. I mean, Henry is just such a valuable asset. And it feels to me like that gap might be bigger even than the gap between Waddle and Duvernay. So, I think I would stick with the Derrick Henry side there.
That makes sense to me. I'm with you on Hawkinson. I think Hawkinson is just a great asset. After those top 2 tight ends, I want Hawkinson. Cry Guy wants to sell high on Jeff Wilson, wants a wide receiver in PPR. Who should we target? You have that trade thing that likes Jeff Wilson, Pat. So what do you think?
Yeah, and I'm going to, personally readjust that down a little bit for this. But that should still fetch you something like... I think we're still looking at that Amari Cooper, DK Metcalf level, Tyler Lockett, Christian Kirk, maybe Chris Godwin, maybe either of the Tampa receivers. I think that would be reasonable.
Excellent.
Olave might be in that range, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Olave would be nice in that situation. Anthony Crocker wants to know, they were offered Zeke and Brandon Cooks for Kadarius Toney and Melvin Gordon, 12-team keeper league. Toney is an 8th round value next year. So that's the value there, is if Toney's good, then they're an 8th round keeper. Zeke and Cooks for Toney and Gordon. Since it's a keeper, I'm going to throw that at you, Ryan. What do you think?
I mean, Toney, we already talked about kind of the range of options or range of outcomes with him, and still an unknown, lots of things to be concerned about, injuries especially. But in this specific trade, Zeke and Cooks, Melvin Gordon, Toney's really the one with the possibility of having some long-term value. So yeah, give me Toney there. And If he blows up the second half of the year, he becomes an easy 8th round keeper.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Now, if you're, the rest of your roster, if you're dying for production, although I don't know, Cooks and Zeke aren't even producing. So yeah, I'm with you, Tony. Give me Tony there. Cry guy. Any cheap tight ends to target in Dynasty as bench stashes for a rebuilding team? Anyone out there that maybe isn't getting any headlines? Young tight ends to target as bench stashes if you're rebuilding. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, there's always tons. I think this rookie class has really been much better than expected. And we've seen, we saw a couple week flash of Isaiah Likely. We'll see if Mark Andrews can get back on the field this week after their bye. But if Andrews is back, I think Likely kind of falls back as far as value. Cade Otton played well when given a chance. Yeah, really. The Okonkwo kid from Tennessee. I knew I'd butcher that name. Basically, the rookie class of these tight ends are the ones I want to focus on.
Yeah, and if you're you've got, go ahead, Pat.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say I'd throw in Daniel Bellinger, who was being used pretty extensively in that Giants offense too. But Ryan's right. Like the tight end class was maybe a little underrated, and it's surprising how many of these guys have been having at least a little bit of an impact.
Yeah, excellent. Also, Cry guy, Trey McKitty probably is picked up, but Gerald Everett, I believe, is a free agent after this year. Trey McKitty has a great athletic profile out of Georgia. Interesting option there if you're in a deep league. Stephen G, should I be giving up Devontae Adams for Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase? Currently 9-1, so can survive some of the losses. They have CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Brandon Cooks, and Jahan Dotson in a half PPR. My first question there is it a 2-receiver or a 3-receiver league? But Pat, what's your initial take on that?
No way. I'm not trading into that injury ambiguity and giving away a guy like Adams, who's just, and this was right after they, badmouth the Raiders and everything, but Devontae Adams is the one thing that's working there. And I couldn't give him up for 2 injured guys.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Devontae Adams, he's been just a target hog, even though he's had a couple stinkers there. Ryan, Michael Egeman wants to know if you would trade Rachaad White for a late first in 2024 and or Cade Otton, Cole Kmet, or Jaylen Warren plus an early second. So tight end and a second, Jaylen Warren and a second, or a 24 late first for Rachaad White. Any of those appealing to you?
Yeah, the first rounder for White is very appealing. I think when you really get down to it, there's not that many running backs that are worth a random future first rounder. And, we throw that random word around as the season nears to an end. The 2023 picks are not really random. If you're in your league, you have a pretty good idea of where they're going to be. But when we're talking about 2024, I like Rachaad White. I'm excited to see him maybe continue to take over that backfield. But I would still take a 2024 first for him for sure.
Yeah, especially if you have running back depth on your roster. I like that too. I agree. I kind of like the 2024 class. 2023 class looks really good. 2024 looks pretty good too. So I like that. Cameron Hill has Christian McCaffrey, was offered Elijah Mitchell as security and Gabe Davis for Mark Andrews. They have Kittle on the bench. I'd rather trade Kittle. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that deal. Not for depth. Andrews is way too valuable to give up. See what you can, get one of those guys for Kittle, but don't give away Andrews.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Austin Cooper has Christian McCaffrey, Jeff Wilson, Ramondre Stevenson, Brian Robinson. Also has Hopkins, Jefferson, Higbee, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Godwin. Quarterback is Kyler. 12-team league. Who should he trade for? Those open-ended are pretty tough. 3-flex league with no kicker or defense. I think what I would immediately look at with this roster, Austin, is the opportunity to maybe trade Jeff Wilson on a high and try to get a third receiver that's although your receivers are really set, maybe an upgrade at tight end. Maybe if you can get Higbee and Wilson consolidate and get a better tight end, that's what I see right away. Mr. Scampers, half PPR, 1 quarterback, has Fields and a terrific running back depth. Give Mixon and Tua for Tyreek and Brady. Mixon and Tua for Tyreek and Brady. Pat, what do you think about that?
He doesn't really need Tua, so Mixon, Tyreek. Yeah, I like it. Tyreek is just such a monster. He has been so productive, like consistency normally even with the top wide receivers, we don't see consistency. Like Justin Jefferson has had some down weeks. Jamar Chase has had some down weeks. Tyreek Hill doesn't seem to have any down weeks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So and plus, I'm not a huge Joe Mixon fan. I like sell while you can. It with the 5 touchdown game still fresh in people's memories. I would do that. I like that, Mr. Scampers.
Excellent. Hi, Jen. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Always love Jen. Let's see here. Matt Price on a contending dynasty team. What range of players would you be willing to accept for Cooper Kupp to fill in down the stretch? We touched on this just a little bit in the Mike Evans and a pick question earlier, but what do you think, Ryan? Who would you be targeting to get for Cooper Kupp if you've got him on a contending team?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned those names, Hollywood Brown, Deebo Samuel earlier. I would like to aim a little higher than that. That's maybe wishful thinking, though, at this point. DK Metcalf would be another one that would fit that range. Yeah, that's probably it. DK, maybe Godwin, and then those names we already mentioned.
What about Amon-Ra St. Brown? Just curious if he'd be out there. I feel like that might be a tier break.
I would do that. I don't think you can actually get St. Brown right now for Kupp. I actually had St. Brown ranked ahead of Kupp in Dynasty before the injury. So if you can get St. Brown, I love it. I don't know that is going to happen.
That makes sense. All right. MC Chungi wants to know, trade Jalen Waddle for Ken Walker. Pat, what do you think?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
If you have wide receiver depth and need a running back, makes sense.
Seems fair. And then stick with you, Pat. Terrell Taltawin wants to know Cortland Sutton or Isaiah Pacheco in a PPR.
I think you have to go Sutton now. I mean, it doesn't look like Judy is going to miss extensive time, and I know Sutton has been really disappointing, but Pacheco's not. It doesn't appear he's going to be a great PPR back. I mean, he might be the leader of that rushing game, but I don't think he's going to offer you all that much in the passing game. I still want Sutton there.
Sure. And then Travy J, pick 2, Mike Williams, DJ Moore, Chris Olave, and Rondale Moore. Not sure where they're picking 2 there, but I'm just going to assume rest of season, Pat. Which 2 would you rather roster out of those 4?
Oh, sorry. Mike Williams, Rondale Moore, and who were the other 2?
DJ Moore and Chris Olave.
Olave and... I think still Olave and DJ Moore.
Yeah, I know it hurts when I thought that in my head too. It kind of gave me a little when I thought that too with DJ Moore. Curious, Ryan, Rondale Moore has come on lately. He's been kind of a target hog in Arizona. How bullish are you on him dynasty wise? Like now that he's kind of seems to be asserting himself in that offense.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about him. He was a player I liked coming into the league. I mean, I do want to see what that offense looks like with Hopkins and Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore, all on the field at the same time. We haven't seen that yet. And I mean, you would have to assume Moore would be the pretty clear third option. So I'm excited about the long term for Rondale Moore, but don't want to get too overzealous in buying him right now.
Sure, makes sense. Pat, Nick Miller wants to know Ramondre Stevenson for CD Lamb in a PPR.
Yeah, also very fair. I like that deal. And if I were the Lamb stakeholder, I'd be satisfied with that too if I needed running back help. I think it's a fair deal.
Yeah, seems fair. Positional value, whatever you need, I think is the side that you want. YouTube wants to know, should they trade Najee Harris and Amon-Ra St. Brown for DeAndre Swift and Cortland Sutton? Najee and Amon-Ra for Swift and Sutton. What do you think, Pat?
I say no. I mean, it's really so with the Judy injury, probably not long term. Like we don't know if Sutton is going to get that clear runway. Like Sutton just hasn't produced with Judy around. Like that's been a big obstacle for Sutton. And then Swift, like it's hard to tell right now if the situation is the way it is because Swift is still not 100% healthy with the shoulder and ankle injuries, or if the Lions staff just likes Jamal Williams more. So I think you're just trading into too much ambiguity there.
I agree with that. Jamal Williams seems like a Dan Campbell guy. Just seems like a Dan Campbell guy to me.
Yeah, we saw a little of that on Hard Knocks too. I think like that was almost they were leaving breadcrumbs for us, showing like how much everyone on that team loved Jamal Williams. We should have seen that coming, maybe.
Should have seen it. Matthew Sue wants to know trading away Alvin Kamara and getting Mark Andrews and Deontay Johnson in a 12-team PPR. What do you think of that one, Pat? Trading Kamara, getting Andrews and Johnson.
Yeah, I'm on board with it. I mean, Mark Andrews, if he is indeed fully healthy, I mean, he is just such he gives you such a positional advantage at tight end. Like, and to get another piece, you know, I know Deontay Johnson is like he's only been over 63 yards once this season, not having a great year, but to me, like that, I like that deal for him.
Yeah, he's a cheat code. Mark Andrews is a cheat code when he's healthy. Jessel Jones wants to know, trying to trade away George Kittle, Cortland Sutton, and A.J. Dillon to get Travis Kelce in a 3-receiver PPR. They already have receivers. Good trade for both sides. The guy they're trading had Kupp and Judy. You could try it. I wouldn't give up Kelce for that. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, I would reject that poo-poo platter trade pretty quickly if I were the other guy. Sorry, Jessel.
Let's see here. I think that's a good trade. Yasir Ahmed has Leonard Fournette, got offered Najee Harris. Should they take it? Fournette for Najee Harris. Pat, what do you think?
Oh man, talk about damaged assets here. Yeah, I think I would actually rather have Najee Harris here. Yeah. What do you think about that, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on that as well. I guess, I mean, they're trending in two different directions, right? I mean, Harris coming off basically his best game of the season. He did have a nice week 1, but yeah, I'll take Harris here.
I'm checking our trade value chart, and we have Harris valued higher than Fournette. It looks like it's close, but just by a little bit.
I wanted to ask Ryan real quick. Najee Harris, obviously not the season we were hoping for from Najee Harris. I know there was some stuff out there, but curious what your take is on Najee Harris, how you're approaching him in Dynasty right now.
I mean, we saw him as a first-round startup pick all off season, and it feels like there were so many people advising Dynasty players not to do that. I was one of those. I don't typically like drafting running backs or building my Dynasty teams around running backs anyway, especially players like Najee Harris. It's just, there's just not a safe long-term bet. So to see him fall to that 3rd, 4th, 5th round range of ADP that we compile in season, not really a surprise. That's where I think he's his value is, a better representation of the player, I guess.
Sure. Okay, Parker Warren, last question, then I'll let you two gentlemen go. Parker Warren wants to know, they get Josh Jacobs, and they trade away Christian Kirk and Ramondre Stevenson. So getting Jacobs, but quite a bit to give up there with Kirk and Stevenson. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, the gap between Jacobs and Stevenson, if there even is one really, like Kirk is just way too much to bridge that gap. I mean, if there is a gap and Jacobs is the better guy, it is a small gap, and Kirk is too valuable to throw in.
I feel the same way. And Matthew, you got it in just under the wire, so I'll throw this question too. Received a counter offer. Trade away Alvin Kamara, receive Mark Andrews without Deontay Johnson. Do we still like that trade, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, like, assuming he is, not going to be going from having Alvin Kamara in his lineup to Tyler Algier. This is assuming he's got some sort of good backup option. Yeah, I mean, for one of the two true difference makers at tight end, I think I'd probably do it if I had the running back depth to pull it off.
Makes sense to me. Sorry for anything we didn't get to, but we are out of time for today. Don't forget to check out Traders Alley on 4for4.com every week for all your redraft trade advice. Also, feel free to tweet at me. I love talking this stuff at 2guysbrandon. Always happy to chat. Huge thanks to you, Ryan and Pat, for joining me today. Once again, you can find Ryan on Twitter at RyanMC23 and at dynastyleaguefootball.com. Ryan, thanks again. Any final thoughts or plugs before we go?
No, just thanks for having me on. Always fun to talk fantasy trades.
Excellent. Pat, once again, big thanks to you as well. Listeners should follow Pat on Twitter at @Fitz_FF. Read his stuff at fantasypros.com. Thanks again. Any final thoughts or plugs before we go, Pat?
Yeah, just great to be on with you and Ryan, Brandon, and good luck to everyone out there with the playoff push.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks again. Listeners, don't forget to subscribe to the Most Accurate Podcast. Follow me on Twitter at 2guysbrandon. Thanks for checking us out and have a good day.